Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Welcome back. I am excited to be here with you today. It feels like it's been a while, but I'm excited to talk about a subject that I think we've hit on in some episodes, but it's definitely one that's come up frequently for me in the last couple weeks, and that's the topic of leadership. And you and I have talked about it in various ways of how it plays out in your practice, but I wanted to hear from somebody, so we're including more voices in our podcast, and we'll hear from Dr. Marr today on her style of leadership, and we can talk about how she does things, and then I want to kind of roll into your style of leadership, which is kind of a combination of two different types that we'll talk about. So you ready to hear from Dr. Marr first?
Yes, love Dr. Marr.
Okay.
I want to know what she has to say. Dr. Marr, by the way, is a pediatric dentist in Dallas, and I love her.
She is awesome. Okay, here's what she has to say.
My style of leadership is one that is rooted in the idea of leading by example, and leading by example to empower my team to become little leaders in their own right. So most of that really for me is making sure I set very clear expectations for everyone, holding myself and my team members to those same expectations. There's not a double standard. I always try to encourage my team to understand that what I expect of them, I also expect of myself. And in fact, I expect those things of myself first. For example, the idea of showing up to work on time. I try to be the first one here. I try to be on time for all of our meetings and huddles such that I am leading them by setting that example so that they can see what that looks like in true practice. In the same way, when it comes to patient care, one of our missions and one of our goals is that the patients always come first. And I also try to live up to that example or that expectation that I have set for my team such that I can be a leader by the example that I set. With that being said, I also do encourage my team to be empowered to be little leaders in their own rights, that they will be able to give them the freedom to be able to make decisions on their own, knowing that what our team goals are such that they can take pride and joy in the decisions that they've made when they have great outcomes. At the same time, you also have to allow sometimes your team to have small failures and small setbacks such that they will also know that being a leader isn't always about success, but that is also sometimes about failure, and sometimes that things don't always come to fruition the way you expect them to come to fruition. And with that becomes another obstacle and another challenge for them so that they realize that they too can overcome obstacles in every day. So leadership styles are different for everyone. That's the leadership style that I've found that works well for myself and for my team, one that is leading by example and then really empowering my team to be little leaders in their own right, such that the expectations that I have for them are very clear and that they give them leeway to make those decisions and those choices to meet goals and expectations on their own as well.
All right, so that's Dr. Marr's leadership, and I was telling you earlier that I don't know that I have a term for her leadership style. There's so many leadership styles that have been written about and discussed and talked about.
Karina, did you hear that? You're an oddling. You're an odd man out. She doesn't have a category for you.
Exactly. You're one of a kind.
Yes.
But it works really well in her practice. She is, to me, a very solid leader in her practice, and that her description of creating little mini leaders, I think, is exactly what she does. And she does that by setting very clear expectations, and then she backs away and she really lets the team work on their own to fulfill those expectations. I think about it a lot with parenting, because leading is also parenting as well. And I tend to try to follow the same model. Like, hey, my expectation is go clean your room. And if I were you, I would clean your room in this way. And then let's back away and let's see what they do with that. They may make a mess of it, but they're learning how to do it on their own. And I feel like Dr. Marr does a very similar thing, is that she makes the expectations known, backs away. There's mistakes that happens, and she'll come in and she talks about those mistakes and then backs away and lets them kind of rise to the challenge. And so in her team, she's got a lot of people that are just self-propelled. They're managing themselves for the most part. She does have an office manager that helps her kind of jump into those mistakes, but then the manager herself backs out as well. And so it's created a really unique environment where Dr. Marr is critical because she is the head, she's the lead, and she's setting the expectations, but she isn't necessary there every single day. It's
so just to clarify, by critical you mean important, not that she's criticizing.
No.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Good point. She's important to the vision of the practice and what the expectations are. But do they need her? Are they floundering without her on a daily basis because they can't solve this problem without her? No. They can manage on their own for the most part. And so it's a unique environment that I think she's created. So tell me your thoughts after hearing her and maybe by my elaboration of her. What are your thoughts?
I think it's fantastic if you can make that work. And then, I always stop and go, could I make that work? Would that work for me? And I don't think it would, because first of all, if, knowing Karina the way I do, she is very clear, like you said, clear expectations.
Yes.
High standard, knows what she wants, pretty black and white, and I'm kind of the opposite. I'm every shade of gray. I don't really know what I want. I don't have a clear expectation. I'm just talking out loud, and maybe we'll stumble upon a solution. So I don't think that style would work for me. Do I, admire that style? Yes. I mean, she's definitely one who is clear and has a vision and, and is going to go get that.
Yeah.
And then there's me going, I kind of know what I want, but maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I want this. So it's like this, I wouldn't say wishy-washy. I mean, I know at the end of the day, I want quality care.
Right.
But in my mind, there's 10 different ways to get there, and maybe 15 different parameters to each 10 ways.
Right.
And with Dr. Marr, it's more like, no, this is the journey we're on, so navigate this path. So it's just different.
And I think you tend to process things emotionally as well. So there's an emotional component to your decision making that does make it feel a little more gray, but you can go kind of either way based on how you're feeling about a decision. And this is personality driven. So this, if our listeners haven't listened to our personality segments, this will be really helpful. But you are more of a feeler. Dr. Marr is very logical, analytical. So Dr. Marr and I are actually the same personality type, that choleric with melancholy. So we know what we want. We know how to get it. We're constantly building plans. And it is very black and white, non-feely. And therefore that allows her to be the type of leader where she can set really clear expectations. She's not waffling on that. There's nothing that's going to change the path that she's set. Now, external factors can change it. And then she and I have talked about this a lot. You pivot and you build a new plan. And it's kind of no big deal. So she can respond. She talked about, allowing her team to make mistakes. And you learn in that process. Do those mistakes frustrate or fluster her? Nope, they don't. Because she's not an emotional reactor to those mistakes. She is expecting mistakes. And therefore, when they happen, she's going to engage on it, and then she's going to back up and follow her plan again. And so a very analytical black and white person can absolutely lead like that. You are going to struggle because you're not necessarily that personality type.
Well, and it makes it not easier, but cleaner may be the right word for her team then.
Yeah.
Because she has been very clear, and they know where they're supposed to go. And so I think with my approach, it could go many different ways, like we think we're going here, but we might change our mind. And so I can't set forth many leaders because they wouldn't know what they're doing because the helm hasn't clearly set the path. And I think that was key in what she said there, where she decides, she makes the choice, makes the decision, makes the path, whatever it is, the goal, the vision, and then she leads by example. And so I definitely think that there's a lot of advantages to proceeding that way, and to be able to empower your team like that is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we all know, and we would love a team that is self-sufficient.
Right.
I think my team is relatively self-sufficient as well. That such that I could be gone for a while, and I think they would be just fine, because in the end they know
what to do.
Well, yeah, and really at the end of the day, like, what's the point? Got to take care of the patient, got to do what's right. So if you know the value, then you could stop and say, well, what do we do in this case? This mom is asking this, but there's that. Well, if Kuba was here, what would she do? Well, in the end, this is the right thing to do. So we know that that's the end result. It's just how do we get there is going to be what varies. And that makes it a little more gray for the leaders. And some of the leaders like that, and that they have more flexibility, if you will. And I think Karina's way too. They do have some flexibility to make mistakes and all of that. I just think her leaders probably have a more clear cut versus mine do have to stop.
But I think you make a good point in that there's a vision, there's a set of values that as a leader, no matter the style, and we'll talk through several styles in this today, but no matter the style, we've got to have a very clear picture of what we're trying to achieve, what's important to us, what's the core to who we are. And then there's various ways to get to that. I think with Dr. Marr's team, we know what the expectations are, we know what the goal and the vision is, and we have a very clear path that's been set for how to get that. I would also say that Dr. Marr does a good job of supporting them. I think about a particular team member that she's had on her team for several years, and she stepped in. So she was an RDA, she was in the clinical setting. Her office manager had some personal needs, so she needed to be gone for a long while. And so we moved this person who was cross-trained into that role. It was kind of, let's see how you do with it. And she, of course, struggled with multiple management type things. And Dr. Marr didn't just sit back and go, well, you're struggling. Again, here's my vision. Make sure you're achieving it. She didn't allow her to just flounder and fail. She set up lots of coaching with me. I was meeting with this person on a monthly basis. Let's figure out how to organize. How can we help you get the tasks done that you're struggling with? What tasks are you avoiding because you're uncomfortable with those tasks? Let's build a plan for those. So it was a long year of really coaching and trying to develop this person, and we saw a lot of improvements, but she still was failing the ultimate mission of management, which was more of the employee management side, being able to support them, help manage them. Because again, Dr. Marr is, I'm going to set the vision and I'm going to back away and y'all figure it out. And this manager was having trouble supporting her team in any kind of things that they needed. Coming on time, she was too scared to kind of get on to them if they were late. And so that was becoming a chronic problem. She just didn't have the management side down. So after a year of it, again, Dr. Marr invested a lot into this young lady and didn't want to lose her on the team, but we had an honest sit down with this person where we go, do you love this role? No, I don't love this role. Like, I feel like I'm a failure in it. And I know you're trying to help me, but I just don't think it's me. Totally get it. We understand. Let's shift you back to where you love, which is clinical, and we'll revisit who's going to be in that manager role. So it wasn't that Dr. Marr set the vision and then backed away completely. She was providing her with a lot of support. It wasn't necessarily Dr. Marr always providing that support, but it was, I'm going to help you get to where you want to go. And then when she didn't get there, let's sit down, let's reevaluate, let's pivot our plan and do something different. And so again, that clarity was there all along, but she didn't allow the person to just continue to fail, I think, if that makes sense. So again, overall, I would say her leadership style is very clear, but it doesn't mean that we're always just staying on the same path. She's pivoting a lot and providing support and then developing different paths to get to it. The way you make decisions is, I would say, more kind of in the moment. You can kind of read the writing on the wall, and you're pivoting maybe more often based on circumstances that come up and are presented to you. So let's talk a little bit about your leadership style.
Well, and I will say, before I forget to add this, I think one of the keys is the consistency of the value. So even though I may not be consistent, like Karina may be more consistent with, you know, here's our clear vision, here's our black and white, here's our this. I mean, I don't know. You obviously you correct me if I'm wrong, but just kind of what I would imagine.
And then, it doesn't change much. So not only is it clear, the consistency, you're exactly right.
Now, I would say I'm consistent as well, though, in the value. So at the end of the day, my value, it might be important to, again, take care of the patient, provide outstanding customer service, take care of my team. Like, those are recurring themes in every decision I make. So even though I don't have like one clear path to what I'm doing, at the end, if I'm not there and everybody's trying to figure out, well, what would Kuba want here? The consistency of, well, if we were going to do this or do this, which would she prefer? Well, her value is consistently, she wants what's best for this and best for that. Like, all of her decisions, even though they're all different and they're all over the place, but the recurring theme is the same. So I guess that's where I would go back to, if you have a recurring theme, making sure that you're consistent with that. So,
and consistently communicating that. Right. And I feel like that's where a lot of practice owners can fail. They know in their mind what their value is and what they want, but they have trouble clearly articulating that to their team or talking about it at all. And I think that is one of the similarities between you and Dr. Marr, is that it's very clear to your team. What are we aiming for? What is our goal? And that's a big part of leadership, is communicating that vision and getting your team rallying around that vision as well. Yeah. So how would you describe your leadership style? We were just talking about how you had to answer this question lately, and you answered it in a certain way.
I got asked this question, like, what is your leadership style? What is your communication style? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are my choices? Like, what am I supposed to pick from here? So for communication, I was like, direct. Like, could that be my one word answer in this paragraph of a question? Like, okay. So I struggled with that. And then what's my leadership style? I'm like, I have no idea what my leadership style is. And I've heard you say this before. So I took that buzzword from you and I was like, I think this is going to apply, or I'll make it apply. And I chose the word collaborative, that I like, like, whereas Karina may have a clear, like, this is what I want and black and white. And for me, I'm like, I think this is what I want, but these are the ways we could go to get there. Or like, for example, do I want to be open from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday? Nope, don't want to do that. I'm clear on that. I want to be here some. I want to be here some for my patients, but I need to be some for my family. So Karina correct me if I'm wrong, Karina might have a very much like, no, it's going to be 8 to 3 Monday through Friday, and we're going to do this. For me, I'm like, we could do it whichever way. All I know is that there's at least 3 days out of this week that I want to be done by 2, but I don't care which days those are. And I don't want to start, I'm an early bird, so I want to start early and get done early. So I don't want to be the one to do this, but we've got 5 days, ladies, y'all pick. Or if you want to do a Saturday, let me know, but I'm not doing Sunday. So then at that point it becomes, oh gosh, what does this lady want? Well, again, we could go about this any number of ways. I'm open to suggestions. Go ahead and tell me what y'all think. Give me your pros and cons, and we go from there. So to me, I would consider that collaborative. Like, I want to hear from other people to see if there is a benefit that I've missed, that I haven't really thought about. And then if you can defend that and give me the pros and cons, then I'm going to entertain it and then put that together. So to me, I would call that collaborative.
Yes, I think it's absolutely collaborative. And you enjoy the process of making decisions with others. That's you enjoy the dialogue. I was thinking about our management meeting last week. We invited some new members to that management meeting, and I think those are pleasurable. Like, we enjoy looking at problems that need to be solved, and we are talking about it amongst ourselves, considering it from all these different angles from the people present. And then together we make a decision and we move forward. And I think that's a process that you enjoy. It would be more stressful for you to look at that list of paper with problems and go, here's my decision, here's my decision, here's my decision.
Oh, that would paralyze me. Yeah. I would be like, I have no idea. Like, what am I going on? How am I making these decisions without knowing all the, not necessarily even the facts, but like the implication of the decision I'm going to make. And I can know that from my perspective, but I don't know that from, front desk perspective, back perspective, etc. So I think I kind of need to know all those moving parts to then decide which way. And honestly, like that was the first time, we used to do team lead meetings once a month at 8 a.m, and it was you, me, and then my 2 other team leads. One of the team leads, of course, has left. And so this is where I said, I'm going to invite somebody we've got 3 front desk members. I'm going to let them pick who wants to come to the meeting. Honestly, that even was kind of a test to see, would one of them show up? Because that would have spoken volumes to me. Y'all want to grumble away, and now I've given you an opportunity to have a seat at the table and be the voice for your department, and are you going to take that opportunity or not? And they did, and I was very proud of them for doing that. And so even throughout the week leading up to the meeting, the 2 weeks before, they may ask a question like, oh, do you want to, I can't even think of an example right now, but should we blah, blah? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's save that for the team meeting. Because I want them to see that we do deliberate and weigh out different, sides of the coin, if you will, before we decide on something. Because I think that's where a lot of times for the team, they don't get the benefit of seeing what all has gone into a decision. So even the doctor that's going, nope, I don't want anybody's opinion. This is what I'm setting. I mean, you've got to have a reason for that. But most of the time we don't communicate that to the team. Yeah. And it's just like, here's the decision, y'all. And now people are going, why is that decision? She's so mean. She's so this. It's like, no, there was a reason to why we opted for this. Maybe it was a insurance reason. Yeah. Maybe it was an overhead reason. Maybe it was like, there's all these things that we're not going to sit and talk the nitty gritty with every team member for every decision. I don't think that's appropriate, but there are certain things that, should we do it this way or should we do it this way? I don't know. So one example was, text to check-in more recently. And of course we dropped that for the summer, but this is right before the summer, like April or May. And somebody said something about text to check-in, and I was like, are we still doing that? Like, I had no idea. I don't even know what we're doing anymore. And one person liked it. The other one was like, I think this is, hindering us in these ways. Then I turned to you. So for me, Karina probably would have had an answer to that. Okay, nope. CDC is not recommending it. Nobody else is recommending it. We're going to stop doing it. Karina, I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm just assuming, but that's how you probably would have.
She can make decisions quickly with very little information. And that's part of her personality type. And that's what creates that clarity, is we can make quick decisions and we don't have to deliberate on it or collaborate on it.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right.
And for me, I guess I could have said, yes, let's quit. But then my mind whiffle up, well, should we quit? Should we not quit? What are the benefits of it? What are the benefits of not it? Like, are we shooting ourselves in the foot by keeping it? Or are we shooting ourselves in the foot by dropping it? So, I mean, that's just my crazy mind then starts going down all these paths. So then for me, even just that decision alone, put that on the team lead meeting and we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
And I think for me, I feel better then when it comes later. If I had just made that decision, stop it. And then there's the one person who like really liked it and she liked it because of XYZ. If she doesn't know that there was a thought process behind it. And, for Karina, there's got to be a thought process. She's not just going to randomly, arbitrarily. She's got a thought process,
yeah.
But she's able to process that herself and her, either style, mine or hers. The team just gets a decision. And so a lot of times there's resistance to that decision because they think it was arbitrary. So I like Karina's way because it's the team making the decision to begin with. And for me, it's I'm taking what the front has to say versus the back going, well, that doesn't work for us because of XYZ.
Yeah.
And so there's always something new brought up for myself, at least, that I'm going, I'd never thought about it that way. Aha. I see what you're saying. Like, to me, this was a no-brainer. It's such a why are we even talking about this? Oh, I see why we're talking about it. I never thought that could be an issue there. Yeah. So anyway, dare I say, we switched the meeting from this 8 o'clock to, with your schedule, our schedule. It's been hard enough to get together to do this podcast. Yeah. It's like, where are we doing this team meeting? And we ended up doing it, I think, at 2:30 on a Monday. I was dreading it. I was like, our meetings go on for 2 to 3 hours. I mean, I'm not going to get done till 5. Like, and now we have these 2 new people in the meeting that, we've never invited before, because we let the RDAs pick who was going to be their rep. We had the front pick who was going to be their rep. And again, I was proud each one picked a rep. And brought their issues to the table. Yeah, collaborated with their departments, brought whatever issues people had. It couldn't have gone better. dare I say, like you said, I thoroughly enjoyed that meeting.
Yes.
We were there till 5:30. We were still in the parking lot. Bethany's trying to get in our car to go home to her kids, and I'm like, and then the next topic I had to share, it was a really good meeting.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good. And, as you're talking about it, what's interesting about both of these models is that the team has responsibility. With Dr. Marr's model, she kind of sets the vision, she can make the decisions, and then she backs away and allows the team to kind of rise to the challenge. They have autonomy. And your team is very involved. They have a voice in the decision-making process. No matter the style of leadership, if we want to raise people that are engaged and care and feel like they have some part in a practice, we've got to allow them to kind of thrive in their own right. And so by bringing in these two new people into the meeting, one of the ladies that wasn't the representative from the front office said, I'm really excited that we are going to get to have a voice in this. And I thought that's really interesting that they're approaching that with excitement, that they get to be a part of the process. And the other great thing about those meetings, especially this one, we had this list of topics that we worked through. Nothing's dangling, right? So I love those. I get a lot of fulfillment out of those because I'm a taskless person. Like, let's check it off. Let's make the decision. You love the deliberation and the collaboration of it. And I'm like, we got so much accomplished. Yes, it was 3 hours, but we checked so many decisions off the list, and everybody in the room felt good about those decisions. So it's very productive. And then now, because of this meeting, the representatives are taking back to their department, like, this is what was decided, this is what we talked about. So they're more involved. They have responsibility and ownership in it, which I think is really cool.
And so to me, I've always thought and heard and read and all of that, like the team, you've got to involve the team, you've got to get them engaged and all of that. And so listening to this, then I'm like, how are we not engaging them before? And I think some of that is a lot of them didn't seem like they wanted to be engaged. Mm-hmm. Like, if we would ask a question or we would, whatever. So some of it I do think is about timing. And I think circumstance, like when we had this other manager, team lead that had been there since the practice started, I think a lot of us, myself included, kind of deferred to her in her experience and her judgment because she was a wealth of knowledge and information. So I thoroughly appreciated that. I don't think the other front desk members, I think looking at it now, they probably felt stifled. Mm-hmm. Like they probably...
because to be fair, this manager was not in the office. She wasn't sitting elbow to elbow with these ladies. She was definitely a resource for them that they utilized, but she was remote. She was out of the office. And so I do think there was a hedge of disconnect there, that what they were experiencing on a daily basis in the office, your manager was not necessarily experiencing. So could she adequately represent them in the management meeting? No, because she wasn't, even though she's lived their life, she wasn't living it currently. And so I think the fact that they were so excited to have a voice in this meeting shows that maybe to your point, maybe they wanted it all along and it just wasn't an opportunity for them.
And I would say, yeah, they may have been wanting it for a while. I'm not going to say all along, though. That I will argue with, because some of these people, I mean, up until this year, I didn't know if they were coming or going. So frankly, I don't really care for your opinion if you're just giving it for the short-sighted of what's best for you. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's where a lot of times I did feel like I'm not gaining this because you are making the decision or giving the feedback based off of what is best for you. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we should start at 8 a.m. That's what our patients want. No, that's what you want, because you want to drop your kid off and get here. So no, I'm not listening to that. I think they've been here long enough now and they are invested in the practice and considering this their career, their home. Will it be forever? I can't say that, but it's the first time. And for two of them, one of them that's been there kind of off and on for the last 3 years. The other one, she's now kind of been there a year-ish. And both of them, at this time last year, I couldn't have told you if they would have made it through the end of last year or not. Mm-hmm. Not because of me taking them out, but because of their own life circumstances and what they wanted and all of that. So at that point, me listening to them and giving them a lot of
influence,
autonomy, whatever. I mean, I feel like we tried doing that at times, and it was just like nothing, not much of a ripple or anything. So I do think there has to be something about timing. But I think the other thing with that too is that it ebbs and flows. And so in my mind, just to write them off as no, they don't care, maybe at that season and moment in their life, it wasn't for them. So I think that's been a good reminder to me to kind of go, we've got to kind of continue to reevaluate things. Yesterday I was in Atlanta for a Scheduling Institute marketing seminar, and would I say there was anything earth-shattering about it, or did I learn something that I didn't know? Not really, but I was still so glad that I went, because there were things that I was like, we kind of were doing this from a marketing standpoint. And then the pandemic hit, and then the dynamic of XYZ changed, and we're not in these insurances anymore, and we're not, so referral sources have changed, and blah, blah, blah. And so for the last year-ish, we hadn't been doing a strategy that we had tried in the past. But now looking at it, I'm like, why did we drop that strategy altogether? I mean, that was appropriate a year ago, but is it still appropriate now? And so it was just a good reminder, like the whole workshop yesterday that I attended has kind of got me rejuvenated again, going, okay, let me not reinvent the wheel every time. Some of these things worked, some didn't work, but really looking at it going, why did it work and not work? Is it still invalid, or is it, no, these things have changed? And I think the team is kind of the same way. Yeah. Even though this person's been there for a while, maybe they had young kids and they didn't have the bandwidth to pick up an extra leadership role or accountability piece. Or maybe you weren't a good leader. I could definitely say that about myself. Was I not good at holding people accountable? Did I have unrealistic expectations? All of the above. Or did I have under expectations, like making too many excuses for my team? So all of those things where it's like, but I've got to set the parameters, and then I've got to see who I have that fit that. And the team has changed now. So even though the people are the same, like two of those people are the same, but the main person who was kind of there that I relied on, she is gone. So for me to say these two people can't contribute is wrong. I'm losing great potential, the potential for potential, right. Whatever the word would be, right? So I'm trying to see now where they can evolve, and where, was it really that you didn't care and didn't have a voice? Was that your own circumstance, or was it partly because we had this other manager so anyway, it's kind of a constant
reevaluation is such a good point, because not even if it's the same exact people that you've had in place, life circumstances change for them, and to give them that opportunity every so often when you sit back and evaluate. And I would say, even just on leadership, the importance of constantly thinking about each individual team member is important. I was reading an article the other day, and it asked the question, is the world a better place because your business is in it? And I thought about that from a leadership standpoint, knowing we were going to be talking about this today, and I thought to myself, we could apply that same question to the team. Like, is your team better for the fact that you're the leader in their world? And I think if we're not thinking about our individual team members on an ongoing basis, then we are missing an opportunity to lead in whatever style we lead. We're missing an opportunity if we're not reevaluating them. Sometimes, people will come in and they achieve up to a certain level, and our expectation becomes that's all they will ever be is that. But people do evolve. People's life circumstances do change. They do develop more bandwidth or less bandwidth. It can go either way. And that we have to have, from a leadership standpoint, the ability to look at them and go, okay, how do I continue to develop them? How do I kind of remove the development expectation off of them for a moment? They've got a lot of life stuff happening, and I'm going to give some grace here and back my expectations up, and then we'll throttle back up when we see that life is kind of settled for them. And I think that is leadership, not to continue to kind of equate it to parenting, but it is almost like you got your little brood of children that you are responsible for in that setting in your practice, and it's what are we doing with that responsibility? And I think this can be overwhelming to so many people, no matter how long they've practiced. It is, how do I manage and lead these people well? And sometimes that fear can be so overwhelming that that they become, let me just pull back and my expectations are none. Like I'm not going to have any expectations of these people.
So I think that's where this is a good way to kind of direct this, because before we started talking, when I asked you, hey, what are we talking about today? And you said leadership. And so I said, what do you mean by that? And so you've had multiple clients in the last week or so that have had. So let's dive into that then, now that we've kind of set a base for leadership potential styles. What have you been telling these people, or what are their struggles, or what's going on?
So one of the struggles that came up is, and I think this comes up a lot, just in various ways. I had a client reach out to me that said, I just am constantly struggling with frustration at my staff. I feel like I leave every day and I'm angry with them. And, what can I do for that? And so this happens a lot where I'm at a standstill. My staff is not fulfilling to me. I'm frustrated, I'm angry, and I'm done. And that often comes back to a leadership problem. So yes, your staff probably has a ton of problems, but your response as a leader has been anger and frustration. So to me, we kind of back it up and go, okay, well, have your expectations been made known? Are you being clear with your expectations? Because sometimes we have them up here and we assume that they're common knowledge. We've talked about this a lot. We assume, well, of course my employee should expect that I'm going to get on to them when they do something wrong. Well, maybe they don't expect that. Maybe they think that they're perfect. We've got a couple of those on your team. Maybe they think that they don't need to be corrected. They are perfect. And you're correcting them is making them really frustrated. And then you're responding in frustration. Well, then you haven't led well, because you haven't set the expectation for that employee that, hey, this is how we do life in this office. And correction and coaching is a typical part of it. And I realize you keep getting frustrated. And so the lead developing, what is my expectation of my employees? To have a clearly thought through that enough to be able to articulate it. No, I haven't. So I need to back up and develop goals for myself as a lead and for my team as the people that are working for me. And now I need to figure out a system for communicating those expectations. So with your system, it's very collaborative. Even non-management meetings, we're very collaborative. We're taking time to listen. When I'm in your office, I'm meeting with individual employees. I'm hearing them. I'm learning about their desires and what they see as ideas. That's collaboration, and they have a voice. But maybe that system is, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hear from them. I don't want to be connected from them on a normal basis. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're not leading. It just means you need to figure out the system that works for you. Is that, okay, I'm going to have more regular performance reviews where I'm sitting down and we're going down quarterly of what went well, what needs to be improved. Maybe I need to have more regular staff meetings because those don't happen. And so I don't have a lot of opportunity to communicate my goals and vision to the team. Whatever it is, there's a million different systems you can implement, but you got to be able to get what's in your head as a lead out to your team. And so the one that reached out to me over frustration, I was thinking, have we clearly thought about what our expectations are? Are we being consistent in those expectations? And are we communicating those expectations to the team?
I bet you anything, like you said, the communication's the part that's not there. I would say even just watching my team lead that is there, she's a go-getter. She is, you don't have to tell her twice. She needs to know what the goal is, the mission is, and she can sort it out from there. And she's just this machine. She's a pillar. So I think she holds everybody else to that same standard. And so there's a lot of frustration there for her when she's like, this person didn't blah, blah, blah. I don't know how many times, why would I have to? And I just kind of went, okay, I'm constantly having to tell her, okay, vent it out to me. But honestly, did you communicate that? You knew the deadline was Monday. You knew the urgency of it. You think that would be common sense to the rest of the team. To you and I, that's common sense. But to the whole team, is it fair to say that they would have understood the urgency? The call that was made to you to be like, hey man, here's your deadline. Monday's the deadline and y'all need to get this done. You took that call. She didn't take that call. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, she knows that this needs to happen on Monday, but the urgency that's driving you crazy right now, and then the fact that she didn't do XYZ to help meet that, is it really fair? So now then I'm stuck in a position where now she's going, oh, you're just defending her. I'm like, I mean, I'm kind of defending her. Yes, you're right. Because from where I'm looking at it, I know that you got a call, you understand the urgency, but I don't think you conveyed that appropriately.
Right.
Like, and again, it's kind of hard with people with different ceilings and different. So for her, she's very motivated by production and helping the patient and doing all that. It was about filling the schedule for our surgery day. And a team member that had to leave early was like, oh, I'll just come back and finish making the calls tomorrow. And this team lead was like, are you out of your mind? Like, this needs to be done today. We're already late with it. And so I said, well, could you have, when you got that call that the surgical team, like the anesthesiologist, was upset with the delay of getting the patients on the schedule, did you say that to this other person?
Right.
I don't think you did. I think you just said, we need to fill this, or we need to do this. But there wasn't a why kind of given behind it. And anyway, so I think there's some of that where I think it all boils down to communication. I have a non-dental example that got thrown back at me this weekend, and I still stand behind myself, but let's take it out of dental here. So we laugh at, this was probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But I mean, my husband and I had been married long enough. And I'm a pretty picky eater, and there's certain things like, you know, I don't want this and this on my sandwich, or I don't want that and that, whatever. And I guess I ordered, or I wanted him to get me a meatball sub. Yeah. And you know how like when you like look at and you know, they're going to put the meatball sub, cheese, and salt and pepper on it. Yeah. Great. So everything that comes on that sub, he's like, do you want everything on it? Yes. Because in my mind, here's the description of the meatball sub, right, and whatever's in that description, that's what I want on it. Versus him, if it was like the meatball sandwich, he doesn't want the cheese.
Yeah.
And so he would have said, no, I'll take the meatball sandwich, just no cheese. Okay. So that's how I view it. Yeah. Well, I said, so he said, so everything on it. Yeah, everything on it. Okay. And so he comes back, and like literally everything in that sandwich line, there's olives, there's pickled onions, there's lettuce, there's tomatoes, there's like olives, like whatever else. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I was like, we didn't just go on our first date. We've been married for a few years. Like, what is all this garbage on my sandwich? You know I don't like lettuce on it. You know I don't want this. You don't want to. Well, you said everything. And so, like, I was like, are you deranged? Like, are you serious? Like, I have got to specify. I meant everything on the meatball.
Right.
So don't, like, add or take away anything on the meatball description. Well, you said everything. I asked you, do you want everything on your sandwich? So to me, like, and that got brought back up. You know, we hadn't thought about or laughed at that in a while, and something about sandwiches came up, and I see this thread, and my family's making fun of me for this very example. But to me, that like boils down to communication. Because to me, it is common sense. You know your wife. When have I ever gotten lettuce on my sandwich? Never. We didn't just get married yesterday. It's been like 4 years. You know how picky I am. So to me, that's common sense, and I should not have to clarify that.
Right.
But in his mind,
you said everything. That's
and
communication.
He's specifically asking.
Yes.
So I feel like in the office, that's really kind of what it boils down to as well. So whether it's kids or relationships, if you're not married, maybe it's you and your mom or you and your sibling, like whatever.
Yeah.
But I think for the dentist that's frustrated at the team, as painful as it is to go, is it me and not them? Because I know my first reaction, it is not me, it is them. What is wrong with you? We're trying to fill this Monday.
Nature.
Like, yes, like this is not me. It's common sense. We've got the surgery day Monday. These kids need to be seen. Like, get them on the schedule. What, I need to give you an invitation to do that? Like, so like that's my first, you know, like, what do you mean I want everything on the sandwich? Don't be an idiot. Like, but then I stop and I go, okay, all right. Well, clearly something isn't right.
Right.
So I cannot control you, husband. I cannot control you, staff. All I can do is control myself. And was I crystal clear in that? And apparently I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I would say in this case, too. If this dentist is like uber frustrated at the staff, I don't know the dentist and I don't know the issues they're having.
But it starts by looking at yourself.
I start going, what have you not communicated well to your team?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think to your point, it's such a good example from this week with your team lead getting so frustrated. First of all, are my expectations realistic and fair? Right? I mean, because every person, and I wouldn't even say unfortunately, it's just a fact of life. Every person is not going to approach the decision, the problem, the issue the same way that you are. And it's unfair to expect that person to approach it exactly like
but
I
I'm
would.
paying you.
Right.
That's your job,
Right.
is to read my mind and stay 2 steps ahead of me.
Yeah.
Do you want your job or not?
Yeah.
That's how we tend to think.
That's exactly.
Whether we admit it or not, that's how we tend to think. It's like, I'm doing the dentistry. I'm doing the hard part here.
Yeah.
I'm interfacing with the patient and making them open their mouth and do all of that. Your job is only to get them on the schedule. Why is that so hard? Like,
Right.
that's, I think, where we kind of miss the mark a little bit.
Well, and we tend to assume that everybody thinks like us. It's just a natural assumption. I've got so many super melancholy, detailed doctors, and their brain works in such a systematized and organized, detailed way that they're blown away when somebody did not look at that patient or that case with the same level of detail that they did. And I'm often having to remind those people, like, that is not their world. They do not think the way that you do. It's not easy for them. It's easy for you. It is not easy for them. So is your expectation unfair? And in this particular case that came up this week with your team lead, yes, is it common sense that we need to fill Monday's schedule? Is it common sense that there's some urgency here? Maybe. But the particular person that she's talking to has always required very specific, direct instructions and a timeline. And she didn't get that. It was just, hey, you need to call this person, you need to call this person, you need to call this person. And the person did that, but she did it on her own timeline. And then your team lead was very frustrated by that. This kind of takes me back to Dr. Marr's mini leaders as well. I think if I were to insert Dr. Marr into your team lead's position in that particular case, I think she would have said to the person on your team that needed to make the calls, hey, we've got a really big problem for Monday. The schedule's not full. We have a lot of patients that need IV sedation. The doctor, the anesthesiologist, is expecting us to fill that schedule. What do you think we need to do? And then she would have allowed that person to come up with their own plan, their own system. She would have probably told Dr. Marr, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Dr. Marr probably would have given back, I agree with you. The only thing I would change is this. Sounds good? Go do it. She would have backed away completely. And there, you mentioned the word trust earlier. She would have had 100% trust that the plan that person put together, she's going to execute because it was her plan. And that to me is a shift that I think we've been trying to work with your team lead on, that she's struggling with, because in her mind, she knows exactly how she wants it to be handled. And she thinks she's communicating with clarity, but she's controlling the way it's done, and then she's frustrated when it's not done the way that she wants it to be done.
Right. And the word trust is what came up. Mm-hmm. Because she said, now I'm supposed to let go, but I don't trust her because she left and didn't leave me a trail of breadcrumbs. And then when I tried to ask her, she said, oh, well, I was going to take care of it Thursday morning. But we don't have time Thursday morning. I just got my, ripped apart for not having this filled. Why doesn't she get that?
Yeah.
Well, so I can't trust her to get this done. She should have X, Y, Z. I'm like, okay, but there again, you're dictating to her what needs to be done, and she doesn't have all the same pieces that you do because you only told her make these calls.
Right. She didn't get the whole picture.
Yeah.
Even though, again, we think it's common knowledge she should have that picture, but that may be an unfair expectation. So I think she went in with the assumption, of course she should understand the big picture. Now I'm going to give the nitty gritty. This is exactly how I want you to do it. And I'm going to back away and just expect for it to be done. And it fell apart on that particular thing. So, okay, I'm going to pause us in our conversation at this point. I feel like we could talk about this all day, but hopefully we've given some good core concepts of leadership. Communicate, kind of ending on this communication piece of it is critical. Having fair expectations and then clearly communicating those expectations and giving the freedom for your...
I think we should wrap this up with like 3 C's. Communication, clarity, because you've got to be clear. Actually, no, clarity is not what I meant to say. Consistency.
Consistency, yeah.
communication, consistency, and then could we add clarity?
I think clarity is huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we talked about how Karina is very clear, but I'm all over the place. But then the clarity comes in after we collaborate. We're all clear on it. Okay, there you go. The 3 C's. Clarity, communication, and consistency.
I love it. That's such a good way to end. Perfect.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.